Imagine waking up tomorrow to discover that everything you've ever believed in, every moral rule, every tradition, every ambition, has quietly collapsed overnight. Your career no longer seems meaningful. Success feels strangely hollow. Religion no longer provides certainty. Politics feels like theater. Technology connects everyone, yet loneliness continues to rise. Now ask yourself one question. If nothing truly matters, why do anything at all? This wasn't just a thought experiment. Over 140 years ago, one philosopher looked at the future of Western civilization and predicted exactly this crisis. His name was Friedrich Nietzsche, and he believed humanity was heading towards one of the greatest psychological challenges in history. He called it nihilism. But here's the surprising part. Nietzsche wasn't afraid of nihilism. He was afraid of how people would respond to it. Because according to him, nihilism wasn't the end of civilization. It was a crossroads. One path led to despair. The other led to the possibility of becoming something entirely new. This is the story of how one philosopher predicted the crisis of modern meaning, and why his warning may be more relevant today than ever before. When people hear Nietzsche's most famous quote, "God is dead," they often misunderstand what he meant. Nietzsche wasn't celebrating the death of religion, nor was he claiming that God had literally died. Instead, he was describing something much bigger, a cultural earthquake. For centuries, European civilization had been built upon Christianity. Religion didn't simply explain the universe. It explained morality, purpose, justice, human dignity. Life had a clear direction because people believed it was given from above. But then came the scientific revolution. Copernicus showed that Earth wasn't the center of the universe. Darwin challenged humanity's special place in creation. The Enlightenment encouraged reason over faith. Little by little, old certainties began to disappear. By the 19th century, many people no longer believed in the foundations that had shaped Western civilization. And yet, they continued living as though those foundations still existed. Nietzsche believed this was impossible. If the foundation disappears, the building eventually follows. In The Gay Science, he tells the story of a madman running through a marketplace carrying a lantern in broad daylight. He cries out, "God is dead. God remains dead, and we have killed him." The crowd laughs. They don't understand. The madman isn't announcing a victory. He's mourning, because humanity has removed the highest source of meaning without replacing it with anything else. And that is where nihilism begins. For Nietzsche, nihilism isn't simply believing that nothing matters. It's what happens after old values collapse. Imagine removing the North Star from the night sky. The sailors don't immediately sink, but they no longer know where they're going. That, Nietzsche believed, was the condition of modern humanity. The old map had disappeared. The new one hadn't yet been drawn. History offers remarkable examples. Following the devastation of the First World War, millions questioned whether progress, reason, and civilization had been illusions all along. The trenches of the Western Front showed that advanced science could produce not only medicine and industry, but also machine guns, poison gas, and industrial-scale slaughter. The optimism of the 19th century died alongside millions of young soldiers. Later, after the Second World War, existentialist thinkers such as Jean-Paul Sartre explored a similar question. If there is no predetermined meaning, are we condemned to create our own? But Nietzsche had recognized the problem decades earlier. Today, nihilism often wears a different face. It doesn't always appear as despair. Sometimes it looks like an endless distraction, scrolling for hours without purpose, working tirelessly for promotions that bring only temporary satisfaction, buying more possessions in the hope that happiness might finally arrive, seeking validation through numbers on a screen, followers, likes, views. For a brief moment, each achievement feels significant. Then the feeling disappears, and the search begins again. This is perhaps one of Nietzsche's most profound insights. Human beings cannot live without meaning. If they lose genuine purpose, they will substitute it with endless consumption, entertainment, or ideology. The hunger remains. Only the object changes. Here's where Nietzsche becomes truly fascinating. Most people think nihilism ends in hopelessness. Nietzsche disagreed. He believed there were two fundamentally different responses. The first was passive nihilism. This is the response of surrender. Life has no objective meaning. Therefore, nothing is worth striving for. People become cynical. Comfort becomes the highest goal. Avoiding pain replaces pursuing greatness. Nietzsche saw this attitude spreading throughout society, not through violence, but through mediocrity. He called this figure the last man. The last man seeks comfort above all else. He avoids risk. He avoids challenges. He avoids excellence because excellence demands sacrifice. His motto is simple: why struggle when comfort is available? If Nietzsche were alive today, he might recognize traces of the last man in a culture obsessed with convenience. Algorithms decide what we watch. Navigation systems decide where we drive. Recommendation engines decide what we read. Artificial intelligence increasingly decides what we create. Technology brings extraordinary benefits. But Nietzsche would ask an uncomfortable question. As life becomes easier, are we becoming stronger or merely more comfortable? Yet there is another response: active nihilism. This is not the destruction of meaning. It is the opportunity to create new meaning. Once the old values collapse, human beings become responsible for creating values themselves. This is terrifying, but it is also liberating. Imagine an artist standing before a completely blank canvas. The emptiness is frightening, yet it also contains infinite possibility. That blank canvas is Nietzsche's vision of life after nihilism. This brings us to one of Nietzsche's most misunderstood ideas: the Übermensch, often translated as the Overman or Superman. Popular culture has distorted this concept beyond recognition. Nietzsche wasn't describing a biological superior race, nor was he advocating political domination. He was describing an ideal of human development, someone capable of creating their own values rather than blindly inheriting those of society. Think of history's great innovators, not because they were perfect, but because they refused to accept inherited limits. Galileo challenged centuries of accepted astronomy. Vincent van Gogh continued painting despite rejection and poverty. Marie Curie pursued scientific discovery despite extraordinary barriers. Each, in different ways, refused to let existing values define the boundaries of possibility. For Nietzsche, greatness always requires overcoming oneself, not defeating others, defeating yesterday's version of yourself. He famously wrote, "Become who you are, not who society expects, not who your parents imagined, not who social media rewards, but who you are capable of becoming through discipline, courage, and creation." The Übermensch doesn't discover meaning. He creates it, and in doing so, transforms nihilism from a crisis into an opportunity. Perhaps Nietzsche's greatest insight wasn't that God is dead. It was that humanity cannot avoid the question that follows. What now? We live in an age of astonishing technological progress. Artificial intelligence writes essays. Robots perform surgery. Spacecraft explore distant planets. Yet anxiety, loneliness, and depression continue to rise across many societies. Perhaps our crisis isn't one of intelligence. Perhaps it's one of meaning. Nietzsche believed every generation would eventually face the same challenge. When old certainties disappear, will we retreat into comfort? Or will we have the courage to create something new? That question remains unanswered, because Nietzsche never intended to give us ready-made answers. He wanted to force us to confront ourselves. Maybe nihilism isn't the greatest danger of modern life. Maybe the real danger is refusing to decide what makes life worth living. And perhaps that decision has always been ours. If Nietzsche was right, meaning isn't something we find waiting for us. It's something we build. One choice, one value, one life at a time.